Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 113. 113 of 55 and 5, the only series on YouTube that's going one by one through the entire 1955 Parkhurst Wrestling trading card set, released primarily in Canada. And what a set it's been. We've had some great photos. We had Lou Kim yesterday, who appears to be a Caucasian man trying to look like maybe a homeless sailor from an Asian
around
country. We've had some interesting cards as of late, Cary.
You told me we were going to have some guys I would know.
I thought you might know Lou Kim, but no, Lou Kim was an oddball. This one I think you'll know today. He's the biggest Australian star there was. So New Zealand was Pat O'Connor. Australia was this man. I have the safety net today on my phone, so I do not mean to be rude. I'm not checking my text messages. I'm bringing the safety net up. 5 minutes, Cary and I will talk about this man, who is the man on the offensive in this photo. Cary, what can you tell me about Fred Atkins?
Not much, except that I've seen his name. This is a guy that I would say had like a 30-year career.
He did. Yeah, absolutely.
And I've seen his name. He probably was a headliner at some point.
Yeah.
But never was like a superstar.
Yeah, he was pretty much responsible for putting pro wrestling in Australia. He gave it its footing. If WCW with Jim Barnett exploded it, he's the man that laid the foundation and gave it its footing. He's the man that said, this is wrestling. This is what professional wrestling is. So in a lot of ways, he was maybe the Jim Londos or the George Hackenschmidt of Australia. And it's interesting because he'd go on to face Jim Londos. I have my notes here. Do you know what he did in... this is really interesting to me. Do you know what he did during the Depression? He was born in 1910, so he'd been 23 in 1930.
Where was he living?
Australia.
Do I know what he did? He was a fisherman.
Close. He built railroads to the ports through the Australian outback. So he was just this hard blue collar worker in the Australian outback, and there's all these myths around him and about how big and strong he was. He was known for his fitness, and he's biggest drawing card of Australia of its time. He won the Australian title in 42, which was a precursor to the IWA title, which was a precursor to the WCW title, which Killer Kowalski would win in 64, and then the boom happens. And there's wrestling's the biggest thing in Australia at that point. So he really laid the foundation for it. He drew a record 14,000 in November of 46 against Jim Londos.
In Australia? Okay.
And then he starts to come over to Canada and the U.S., becomes a big draw in Toronto, in St. Louis and Chicago. And what I think happened was with the TV boom of wrestling, Gorgeous George in 47, through 55, he was kind of West Coast. Fred Atkins was the villain of Canada. And I think as Americans, we only know the Gorgeous Georges. We might know the Baron Leones. That time period's not well represented. So if you're the biggest fish in Canada, you might not get as much publicity here. So
how did his career wind up? Did he ever go back home?
No. In fact, he stayed here. And in fact, he stayed in Canada, but he became a pretty sizable draw in Chicago and St. Louis. He feuded with all the big good guys. He feuded with Sweet Daddy Siki, with Lou Thez, with Pat O'Connor, with Whipper Billy Watson. Drew good money as a villain. And he helped train Giant Baba on Giant Baba's Excursion and Tiger Jeet Singh in Toronto. So he had a hand in training those guys, and that's where he made his transition to the office. So he does that. He retires. He becomes their manager. It kind of, as both a character and sort of a real life thing. He moves into the box office with Frank Tunney, and then he essentially becomes a made man in Toronto.
It's a hell of a career.
Yeah, and he becomes an on-screen referee. He's the big troubleshooting referee when there's a decision that needs to be made, because he kind of has the the respected legend who, maybe he was a bad guy, but we trust him to call it right down the middle.
It's like an old school Bronco Lubitsch.
Right. Or when Gorilla Monsoon would be the special ref for the big match. You might not have liked Gorilla when he was fighting Bruno, but we can count on him to make sure it all goes down straight. So hell of a career, and his finishing move was the kangaroo clutch.
Okay.
Which I believe might have been a sleeper hold. I haven't vetted that fully, but to what I could tell, that's just the name of a sleeper hold.
Please don't place it on me.
Right. No, but nice card, good action shot. A big man. I think he was 6'2" maybe, or 6 feet. He's 6 feet 250. The card says. I read he was 6'2", 240. So pretty big individual.
Very cool.
Yeah, and one of the strongest, fastest kind of athletes of his day. Later became a fitness instructor with the hockey teams with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Wow.
Yeah, so very varied life, very fun career, and that is Fred Atkins, one of the Outback's greatest imports.
I didn't know nothing about that.
I didn't either. There's a name that I would see, and now you learn a little bit. So we hope you learned something too.
I don't mind admitting when I don't know anything. How else are you going to learn anything?
Yeah, and it's fun looking these guys up, hoping to keep some of their names and legacies alive. Tomorrow, Cary, we have a man that we talked about already. Has one of the more interesting cards in the set. He's one half of a tag team.
Okay.
So we're going to hit that tomorrow. And we hope you join us tomorrow. For AJ from Bisson Creative and Web Design, for Captain Lou and Uncle Gunny, our spiritual advisors, for Cary, I'm Ian Riccaboni. Happy wrestling, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow for more 55 and 5.